See, it's still spooling. It's nice. Yeah, I think we're good, man.
I don't know why you're able to slip that past Joel all the time. I see it right there at the top of my screen.
Oh, I never slip it past him. Anyway, welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. We're here to talk about shooting, but not really today. We're here to talk about USPSA. On deck tonight, somebody who I think you don't care if you get banned from USPSA. So, Mr. Austin Loeffler, I don't know how to introduce you. Just your regular USPSA shooter. Is that fair?
I am a regular USPSA guy. Yeah, I've been in it for a couple of years. As far as I'm concerned, my resume doesn't matter a whole lot. I'm just a guy who's noticed some patterns and some things, been a little bit annoyed by that, and I'm trying to help people understand what's going on.
Yes, I see you've got it fired up on Instagram, and I referenced I guess it wasn't really a letter, but you're just sort of a report on what you found going on in the organization over the last year. Anyway, we've got two things to talk about today. First, we're going to dump out the Kim Williams lawsuit documents. If you're watching this on YouTube, they're going to be down in the description for this video, a Dropbox link where you can read all these documents we're going to talk about for yourself. What's a good way to characterize this thing, Austin?
It's a self-induced dumpster fire, I suppose.
It is a sexual harassment lawsuit on the face of it from the former executive director, which those powers that she had kind of went from her to Foley with some bylaw changes, and then went from Foley to the new managing director position, again, via bylaw changes. Obviously, to keep it away from Matt, of course, so somebody else couldn't have that power. But that's who she was in the organization. And a few years back, I think this was settled in 2018. Yeah. She filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against the organization. But that's not really the interesting part of it, I don't think. No. I don't think that there's there's sexual harassment claims, there's rape allegations. To be honest, I don't really find those things very credible. No. I don't think anybody does. But showing the inner workings of the organization during that time, especially since it's a lot of the same players on the board now, like Sherwin, Bruce 6, Bruce 1,
Troy.
Troy's still in the mix. Yeah, a lot of the same players. So anyway, it's interesting because, and I should say, we got these documents because they're public record. USPSA's own lawyer filed these documents into the public record, which we can't understand why. Because, yeah, I really don't understand it. You've settled it to keep this stuff out of the record, I think, but because a lot of this stuff is very embarrassing and very damaging. Yeah. Okay, so a good way to describe this. So they have this person, Kim, around, who I think she had sexual contact just with these documents. It looks like half a dozen people inside the organization.
Yeah, more or less. She does come off as pretty well connected. I think it is worth mentioning. She took over as ED in 2013. She had been with the org since 2000. And that was a lot of the rationale for promoting her to the ED spot. It was less about her qualifications than her familiarity. So she knew a lot of people in the org, some of them quite well, it seems.
Right, and this is where we get to a situation that they created, where it's okay, you guys have this, I don't know a kind way to put it, so I'll just say you have your office hoe that is involved with various people in various different ways, not really qualified to be executive director of USPSA. Not really. And then they promote her. So then she sucks at this job, by the way. And not for a little while, not for months, but for years. For years. This goes on. I think they even hired her an accountant.
Pretty much as soon as she came on board, there were issues, right? So, at one point, I think it was Jay is oh, yeah, she started out okay. No, you guys were complaining as soon as she came on that she wasn't delivering you the information that you needed.
Right.
To assess the organization. And I don't know what she could possibly be doing that's more important than that.
Right. And
so that started 2013. She's not termed until 2016.
Yes, it's kind of amazing. And this person's obstructing like pretty huge deals, like paying for nationals. You know, like there's one big dispute in here about just paying off a bill for nationals, which it's a shady bill because, you know, it's from SUPS. So, you know, kind of some shady stuff down there. So I get it. And there's not really a contract though, because, you know, Phil was the president. So I understand that too. So they're in this, USPSA got put into a tough position on that. And what the executive director did was just, well, I'm not going to pay this bill. And it just, again, it went on for like 6 months. Many interesting things in there.
And Bruce One talks about that quite a bit in his deposition. It's kind of interesting. He comes on board and shortly thereafter, SUPS hits him up and is like, hey, we got like $40K of unpaid expenses. Can you help me? And I don't know what that invoice looked like, but Kim basically said, yeah, not until I get some sort of appropriate documentation for why I'm paying you this $40,000, which, you know, you have a contract ahead of time that sort of mitigates that problem, but you don't. And the resolution to that was not, hey, give us proper documentation. It was, hey, just pay the man, because at this point, this has gone on too long. So nobody's in a good spot there, right? Because SUPS surely is entitled some or all of that money, and USPSA is just sitting on the funds. But at the same time, I think it's reasonable to expect that you don't cut a check until you know exactly what it's for and whether it's legitimate.
Yes. So, that's all this stuff is outlined in these documents. You know, if you read through, they're like, hey, what's going on with how this organization functions? I think she had a relationship with Troy while she was executive director. If I'm reading that right.
Well, if you ask her, and they did, they had a 16-year flirtatious sort of interaction that involved kissing but was not romantic. So you figure out what that means. I don't know.
Jesus, correct. Yes. Wow. So anyway, those documents are interesting, and it's interesting because, well, history has a way of repeating itself. So they transferred these powers of the executive director after Foley came in. Also in these lawsuit documents, it shows Foley came in as an outsider, and he was kind of the perfect hatchet man to get in there and get rid of Kim because he hadn't slept with her, which you couldn't say that of many people at that point. So that was, you know, that kind of made sense.
There was no conflict of interest there, sir.
Right, but then that Foley situation again dragged on a couple of years longer than it should have, you know. And now, today we're looking at the new revelations coming out about Jake, who is the he's de facto running the organization right now, and Insights is blowing out information about him essentially selling prize guns, review guns, stuff like this. Like, this is all very damaging. And then it'll be like, okay, so you guys will wait some time and then finally solve this problem. We're also announced today the new managing director hired by USPSA is a longtime associate of Bruce Six.
Yeah, is she certified public accountant? Is she, like, what has she served as a CEO, which she essentially is as MD of USPSA? Like, I don't know anything about her, so I don't want to drag her into the mud, but I don't know that her qualifications have been touted as they should be if they exist. You know what I mean?
Based on history, if you're not at least raising an eyebrow at this point, like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, the links, you guys take a look through this stuff, read it if you like. It's a lot. There's a lot there, but you learn a lot. And if you think about it, you see, oh, same patterns exist today. Like, the same thing's still happening. So let's talk about financial stuff, because there'll be another link in the description to a Excel document that you put together, Mr. Austin.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
This is Pat's wheelhouse. So I'm not going to touch on too many details because, quite frankly, I'm not qualified. But I have spent some time looking over the data. So if you go on USPSA's website, for those that don't know, they release 2 financial documents, and they got them every year from 2017 to 2021. There's a financial statement and there's a 990 tax filing. A financial statement, the idea behind that is to give the people some sort of idea of the financial health of the organization. So you have revenue, you have expenses, you have kind of a snapshot of the financial activity of USPSA. And then in some areas, for a little bit more detail, you can dive into the tax filings. So for example, a financial statement will say, we spent $600,000 of salary. Well, you can jump into the 990s and you can see key personnel, people of major influence. That would be like president and, you know, the 5 people that took over the AD's job, Jake, the director of IT, those guys. You can see what they make individually. So that can be interesting. As of right now, what I did was I took a spreadsheet and I put all of that data into one source. It is a lot to look at. You really shouldn't try to draw major conclusions based on the entire thing. You should kind of parse out individual parts. As for what I can see, there's a couple of things that really make me kind of shake my head. There's a line for annual change in unrestricted net assets. All that is revenue minus expenses. And you can see over between 2017 and 2021, in a nutshell, this is oversimplifying, but revenue is pretty steady. There's not a whole lot of up and down in terms of membership dues, match fees. Those are the biggest inputs that you would have. But expenses have shot up to the point that we've gone from being, so we saw 139% gross on that change on that figure in 2017, down to -5, down to -20, up 4. Last year we dropped 88%. That seems significant. It's not, you're not going to find a smoking gun in this stuff, but you are going to find areas where it is pretty apparent that someone should be asking questions. There are things going on that, you know, competent oversight would say, hey, we need to investigate this because we're in danger of being underwater. So I had posted up a few things. For some reason between 2020 and 2021, there's a few figures that jumped through the roof. And that's like travel, it's office expenses, it's things where there's potential for there to be a lot of discretionary, irresponsible spending behavior. And if you look at the facts laid out in the Williams case, there's a lot of pretty credible allegations that that is occurring, that is regular, and it's not just Kim doing it. So,
oh yeah, there was the one thing in there where was it $150,000 or $200,000? 20% of it didn't have receipts to back it. Is that it?
100%. There was a $230,000 American Express account, and an accountant, and I believe it's the same accountant who quit over this, said, yeah, 20% of this lacks supporting documentation, and a majority of the remaining balance doesn't have enough information, right? There are statements made by Williams to Troy about, kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod. I covered that dinner expense for you and your, I don't know, some kind of significant other. Basically, anytime the organization's spending your money, there needs to be a business reason for them doing it. And that's clearly not happening. So
well, what was the travel expenses last year?
Last year, travel.
$260,000. Am I reading that right?
$260,000. That's up 24% over last year, which is weird because I don't think airline tickets are that different than they were last year.
I don't know. I know how much I travel, and I know what it costs me. And they don't have that many people that they move around that much. And my understanding is that the travel for matches is listed under the matches, not listed under the general travel.
That would make sense because matches and other program expenses is over $500,000. So if travel's not covered in that, I know nationals are expensive. I know running 7 different nationals is extra expensive, but I mean, this is a lot of money that we're throwing around. And, you know, when we're not bringing more money in, I don't know how you can defend spending more. That's personal finance 101. And it's exactly the sort of thing that a executive director, president, match director, whatever we're going to call it this week, should be overseeing and should be really attentive to, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. Anything else to add? I'll just leave this stuff up here and people can take a look at it.
No, I mean, look at the numbers, get into it. Like I said, I'm pretty surface level on the analysis that I've been able to do. I kind of got hijacked by this lawsuit stuff.
It was very interesting reading.
Yes, interesting is a good word for it.
Well, did they give Kim a bonus 90 days before they fired her? Like, how does that even make sense when she'd been sucking for years? I mean, it was amazing to read it. And then you have to wonder how much of the blowjob-a-thon discussion between Bruce and Kim, the area, like how much of that's real? Many questions.
Yeah.
So
you have to wonder it. I mean, there's a reason that human resource departments exist and you're supposed to disclose relationships is because there's conflicts of interest. And that's not a topic that USPSA wants to talk about. And I can see why.
No, you can see why, of course.
But yeah, they gave her either $5,000 or $10,000 for a bonus and a raise, and that was because she did a halfway good job. And like, from where I sit, how do you say that someone's done a halfway good job if, you know, you don't get your 2014 financial statement or your 2015 budget until after July 2015? You're not like, I mean, in her defense, you'll see that she just kept taking on more and more responsibilities. And she said she was overwhelmed, and I believe her, but she also had an accountant working for her for quite a while. She had the tools. So
yeah, and she was busy writing like multi-page emails demanding raises and stuff. Like this chick was a nightmare.
No, 100%. And it's funny. It's funny because Foley does come out as the voice of reason in this. Like she complained about her in 2016. She complained about her meager raise and her little tiny bonus. And Foley was even like, "Hey, we'll come back after the end of Q1. If you fix it, we'll adjust your pay." Like she had every opportunity to improve her work performance, and she never did. And it wasn't addressed until after 3 years after she was already into the position that she was not qualified for, and she knew she was unqualified for, and everyone around her knew she was unqualified for. But it's not a problem. Like, what are we worried about at HQ? I don't get it. So.
No. Oh man, you said it. I mean, right now they're in the gotta fire Jake situation, so we'll see if they do that. See how long that goes.
Priority number one, especially with what's coming down the pipe with, you know, these gun and ammo sales. Like if he's not in trouble with the ATF, the org could be in trouble with the IRS.
Those are not mutually exclusive. I think they can both happen.
Certainly can.
All right. Well, thank you, Austin. Thank you for coming on. Listeners, if you have a question you'd like the answer to, go to benstecker.com. Send me your question. We'd love to hear from you.